Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and we are again live here at the annual Vendor Conference and Technical Expo at the AquaTurf, and we are getting a whole lot of friends with us today. So with us is a good time friend of mine and actually an old Portlandite, Mr. Scott Biginatti. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. How are you?
Awesome. Okay. So as you know, again, we're kind of trying to get succession planning of our folks getting into the water industry. So tell us a little bit about your day job.
So I'm a senior project manager with Weston and Sampson,
Uh-huh.
and I've been in the consulting field now for about 17 years.
Yep.
And before that, I was, in academia, taking my time, getting
Yep.
my master's degree,
Uh-huh.
enjoying life a little
Okay.
bit as a young man.
Okay.
And so at this point, I manage a lot of different types of projects that
Okay.
are related to the water industry, not just on the drinking water side, but also on the clean water side related to things like quarries and power plants and
Oh, okay.
golf courses,
Okay.
which they all need water. They all have permitting processes that
Sure.
need to go through. So a lot of what I do is source development and permitting related
Okay.
to that. Water resource allocation,
Okay.
planning, permitting, water diversion permits in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
Everyone who's using more than 50,000 gallons a day needs one of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, then a lot of like stuff on the planning side, front end work,
Yep.
helping utilities kind of get their books in a row and, understand where they want to be in 10 years.
Obviously, it's a big industry, it's a big tent, and you're just one of those pieces of the puzzle that all make it happen. So obviously, you graduated from Portland High, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and
1997.
1997. All right, 1970 here. Anyway, in high school, when you were crafting your career path, what were your inclinations? Did you have a set path that you wanted to go, or how did you get where you are?
I mean, like a lot of people, I wasn't really sure. And I was hoping that when I went to college, I'd kind of help figure that out a little bit. I was always interested in natural resources, flooding. We got the Connecticut River there in Portland.
Yep.
You get to see that flooding happen down near my house, every year along Main Street.
Yep.
And so that was always of interest to me.
Actually, we have the longest frontage on the Connecticut River. Portland has over 15 miles of Connecticut River frontage, so yes.
Yeah, and so, it was always something where I was like, it'd be really nice to do something that's natural resources related.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until later as I got into my consulting career that I really started working with water utilities.
Right.
And that's when I was like, hey, this is kind of where I want to be. I want to help these folks with their problems and help them find solutions to these, sometimes difficult to grasp concepts related to how they're going to manage sources and permit things and mitigate the impacts sometimes of what they're doing.
Uh-huh. Well, the engineering field is again one of those necessities that makes things happen. If it's not from the construction side, but the planning side, the permitting side, and so forth, and that's a big piece of the puzzle in making things work. And a lot of people know what goes on behind the scenes before a shovel goes in the ground. There's a lot that happens now. Now Weston and Sampson. Now you've got a pretty diverse stable of expertise there. So what's your focus now at Weston and Sampson?
Yeah, like I said, primarily front end of the project.
Okay.
Kind of things. I am not personally an engineer.
Oh, okay.
And so, I kind of stand out from the folks who are those traditional engineers.
Okay.
Who,
all right. Well, that's good to know.
Those are the folks who are going to be doing those very detailed treatment designs and the civil engineering related to site development for a new storage tank or something like that. And they're going to be looking at the back end of the project.
Uh-huh.
How do we get this project out to bid?
Okay.
How do we oversee the construction on that?
Yes.
And so, you could bring on any number of engineers and they can tell you all about that stuff.
Yeah.
I can't.
Okay.
Because I'm almost always on the front end.
Okay.
And so it's, where do we site the well so we meet all the DPH setbacks?
Yes.
How do we do the pumping test?
Yep.
And, what do we find in the pumping test? Let's analyze the results.
Yes.
Are there going to be impacts to private wells or not?
Yes.
What permits are going to be required, and let's help you get those permits.
Yes, exactly.
And so there's
water qualities and what mitigation techniques as far as whether it's lead, copper, whether it's iron, manganese, or whatever. That all has to be tested.
Exactly. And now there's, as you know, there's been a big push over the last few years in Connecticut looking at resiliency
Yes.
and, considering things like flood heights.
Yep.
And so when you're using state money,
Yep.
you got to comply with various public acts
Yep.
and start really looking and saying, if we're building a new well in the floodplain, which makes sense because there's a lot of groundwater there,
Sure.
are we going to protect this well in some way so it doesn't flood?
Yes.
Are we going to build a mound? Are we going to elevate the building? Are we
Yep.
going to do something in some other manner that is going to make sure that this is going to be a resource and an investment that's going to make sense for decades to come?
Yeah. Yeah. And comply with all, the between, Department of Public Health and Department of Energy, which is and so forth. Everybody has their own set of ground rules, and we have to all play together in the same sandbox.
Absolutely. And it often depends on where the funding comes from.
Absolutely, and that's another thing, as far as that goes, especially with a lot of the federal funding that's coming down the pike as far as that goes. Also, lead and copper is obviously is a big issue on the forefront.
Absolutely.
I think most utilities now are supposed to be in the survey stage, is finding out where their actual lead and copper lead service lines are and so forth. So, and you guys get into that also?
We do a little of that. We've been doing it more in Massachusetts than
Okay.
in Connecticut.
Uh-huh.
But a big difference is that these projects are so GIS heavy.
Yes.
They have such a big spatial component,
Yep.
both in the analysis part and just to help people understand what's in their neighborhoods
Sure.
and if they're at risk.
Yep.
And that's, some utilities have really embraced GIS, but some are still kind of coming on board and
Right.
and investing in that technology. And I think they're seeing the power that GIS offers.
Yeah. I was fortunate, to persuade the town of Portland to get into GIS a while back. In fact, I even have a site license at Portland High School for all of the SRI stuff. So it's the way I tell students, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when you get GIS, that was you're dealing. But you also have the spatial components, so you've got analytical advantages there to look at where, not only where it is, but what's in relation to that. And its perimeters and so forth. So yeah, it gets to the point where that is very, very heavily used now in all of the industries as far as that goes. So sure. I think, do you still live in Portland?
I live in Rocky Hill now.
You live in Rocky Hill.
My parents are still in Portland.
Still Prospect Street, right?
That's right.
There you go. Okay. So, how did you become, employee of Weston and Sampson now? Just going back the calendar, how many years you've been with them now?
So it will be a year this past March.
Okay. All right.
I made the move. And really I was looking around for a firm that was employee owned and had more interest in kind of doing the things that I'm interested in doing on that front end, like I said.
All right.
There's a lot of traditional engineering firms out there, but Weston and Sampson has really put together a very good hydrogeology team.
Sure.
And I think that makes them stand out.
Yes.
Both on just like the planning for a new well side and the permitting aspects, but also, they've purchased SB Church. They have their CMR arm.
Yes.
We have the CMR arm that does a lot of well and pump repair.
Yes.
And maintenance and some design build work as well.
Yes.
And
Now, is obviously we did work with SB Church when Pete and his brother were owning it. Is Pete still involved at all, or is he pretty much?
They are, they've definitely taken a step back.
Yeah.
They're retired.
Yeah.
But they still consult. We always need to pick their brains on projects because they know everything.
Yeah.
They know the history, and they don't have to go to the file cabinet. It's just all right.
It's
there.
up here. It's up here. I know both. They did a lot of work in Portland on our Glastonbury well for many, many years. So, and a lot of times, from an analytical standpoint, when you're looking for water, they know where the water is.
Yeah.
Everybody uses the technology, so they know where the water is. They can find your water. That's
There's a vacant piece of property. The chances are very good that SB Church has put a test well on it.
Yeah.
At some point in the last
exactly.
100 years.
Well, I know they did the test wells for our Goodrich Road, for our Co-Abdo properties years ago, and did the pump test and so forth. But yeah, you get to a point where anyway. So on a personal side, what do you like to do for fun?
So, I've got 10-year-old twins.
Okay. Yes.
So they take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
I used to like to play volleyball and flag football and a variety of things. Play a little golf. now and
Okay.
then.
There you go. There you go.
It's getting older. Do a lot of puzzles, board games.
There you go.
Friends.
Board games are getting big.
Yeah, they really are. It's
I have my
whole big industry now.
My assistant that works for me at the town is huge into board games, and there used to be a board game place in Middletown. I don't know if it's still there anymore, but I don't know. You used to pay $5. You can go in. They had all kinds of board games there and so forth. I don't think it's there anymore, but board games are becoming a huge industry as far as that. So, what's your favorite board game?
Well, I'm still, a traditionalist Monopoly person.
Okay.
But there's a lot of newer, board games that have come out that are also, they're really good.
Yes.
So some of them are like very complicated and they take like multiple weekends to play, like Feudum. They're very
yes. There's more of a
very
plot there.
detailed, and you got to go home and sleep between sessions because it's just they're wildly complicated games. But if you've got the time to put into them, they're very interesting.
Yeah. It's a great a mixer thing where you get involved with other couples, and so that's great. So fantastic. All right, Scott, thanks so much for coming up and give us your perspective. Going forward, advice to a high school senior or college freshman. What would you give for advice?
Well, I'd say to remember that you don't necessarily have to be an engineer to work in the water industry. There's a lot of jobs in operations. There's a lot of jobs in management, and there's a lot of jobs looking at just resource management and permitting and planning and GIS, and there's all kinds of things you can get into, and you just have to figure out what you like and what you're good at, and go from there. You can find a spot. And
not everybody has to go to college in this industry. I mean, we've got industry. Obviously, you have distribution operators, readers, meter readers, equipment operators, truck drivers, and so forth that are still part of that overall umbrella and so forth. And it's an opportunity again that you can get into, and it's a secure position. The water industry is the type of industry is. You can't outsource. You have to have boots on the ground. You can't, take it overseas and across the pond. You got to have the people, on the ground, to maintain it, to keep it running, and you can get certified as an operator, distribution or treatment operator, depending on, what your system consists of, whether it's groundwater or whether it's surface water, and so forth. And certainly to any of the high school seniors out there that are listening, keep your options open, but look into the water industry because it is definitely something that we need to start refilling our pipeline, so to speak, pun intended. Because all us guys are, me, not you, but are looking at retiring, and we got to fill that pipeline. So again,
absolutely. And it's if you're not sure you want to do college right now, and you can get that job in the industry, there's a lot of continuing ed opportunities. People will pay for you to go down to Southern and, get credit that's related to what you're doing for your job. And, it's a good way to jumpstart college. Maybe you work as an operator for a few years and then you work on that degree at night and you
move on up.
Well,
I know Wes Winterbout, I'm a colleague of mine. Him and I work together quite closely in succession planning, and he's down at Gateway Community College, and he's been instrumental in making people aware of the industry and getting your certifications, be it distribution or be it treatment plant operator. But once you get your foot in the door, or the head of the camel in the tent, however you want to look at it, it is definitely a viable career. So anyway, Scott, thank you so much, and I appreciate it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our future of the water and wastewater industry, and with our guests and the careers you didn't know about. And our guest right now is Mr. Scott Biginatti of Weston and Sampson, and he's an Old Portland native. So, Scott, thank you so much for coming out, and see you down on the show floor.